Hello, Ridgeland High School. This is a Ridgeland Quick Chat. We're going to try these little video conferences every once in a while so that we can communicate some direct information from administration to our faculty and staff. And today's topic is going to be on the TKES process. Remember, when it comes to TKES, it's all about the journey. It's not necessarily the destination that we are looking for at point Z, but rather the process to get us from point A to point Z. Well, that's going to manifest through evidence collection in the walkthroughs and the formative observations. Remember, we'll have 4 walkthroughs. Many of you have already had 2 walkthroughs to this point, and we'll also have 2 formative observations throughout the course of the school year. We have had that post-observation self-assessment that many of you have seen, but also we've made some new iterations of that, some new evolutions that have changed that post-observation self-assessment a little bit, and I'll get into that in a couple of minutes. The big thing is we go through this evidence collection, which will manifest through walkthroughs and formatives, as well as parent conferences and duties and responsibilities, classroom conversations, hallway conversations. Don't sweat the small stuff. This is a journey, not just a destination, and we will get there together. Well, let's take just a moment to talk about the 10 standards of TKES. This is a little graphic organizer that Miss Jagger created a few years ago for us, and it's still very accurate today. So we'll start with the end in mind with our last couple of standards: communication, standard 10, and professionalism, standard 9. These are not part of the 8 instructional TKES standards because professionalism and communication manifest in all things. That's why that's the universal box of everything that goes on encompassing the 8 instructional standards. So we'll walk through those very quickly. Professional knowledge is knowing your content, knowing your craft, and knowing your students. Of course, instructional planning is taking all these factors into consideration with a time-appropriate urgency. To assessment strategies, looking at what strategies have already been given to your kids, their longitudinal data, as well as their pre-assessment data. When you get into what they know before they begin a unit of instruction. Well, of course, you have your instructional strategies and your differentiated instruction coupled together in a positive learning environment. Of course, we're always looking for safe and orderly classrooms with good rituals and routines, and an environment conducive to teaching and learning. And of course, we want that academically challenging environment. The rigor is appropriate to the grade level. We don't have seniors doing sophomore level work. We don't have freshmen doing senior level work, but we do challenge those kids appropriately based on their assessment needs and based on the instructional strategies consistent with the planning and the professional knowledge to be communicated to the kids. In Standard 6, we're going to assess the kids. And once we assess them, we'll find out one of 2 things. Did they meet or exceed our expectations for mastery of that unit of instruction? If so, fantastic. High fives all the way around. Let's take that back to the beginning of professional knowledge in our next unit of study. But if the assessment shows the students did not meet the expected level of performance, we go right back to steps 2, 3, and 4, and then we assess them again. Now remember, with standards-based grading, you really have a lot of tools available at your discretion for assessment. You are the content expert, and there are many ways that a student can communicate their mastery or need for remediation when it comes to your content. So utilize your full tool belt and take advantage of that. Well, let's move a little bit more and get into what we're trying to do with our walkthroughs and formatives. And the big goal is to give you all qualitative feedback. When you look at the 1 through 4 evaluation scale in the TKES process, remember the 1, that's ineffective. That is where nobody wants to be. That means we've really got to make some major changes with what's happening in the classroom. A 2, a 3, and a 4 are all satisfactory performance. That means things are happening as we want them to happen. A 2 means that it's happening inconsistently. We'll see that a lot more on the early side of the evaluations schedule because we haven't developed that pattern of consistency yet. A 3, that means we're hitting the mark. A 3 is where we want everybody to be. By the state's definition, that is a consistent, proficient performance in that standard area. And a 4 is that old word exemplary. That means we are doing everything on a continual basis. That means it never stops at that highest level of performance, and you are doing it as a model to others. People are being sent to you or you are being sent to them to showcase your skills in that instructional area. Remember that 1, 2, 3, and 4 will apply to all 10 standards, so it is possible to be a 3 in some areas, a 4 in some areas, a 2 in some areas. We do want to avoid that 1 area. That means we are ineffective in that specific standard. Well, the big thing that our administrators are trying to give you are coaching comments and supports. And when you look at time, quality, and quantity, the unfortunate reality with all organizations is that you can only have two of the three. So we are really taking a deliberate focus to give timely, qualitative feedbacks with these walkthroughs. There is no specific timetable with how quickly we need to get a walkthrough plugged into the TLE platform. So some of us are taking a little bit longer than we would like to get that quantitative score plugged into the TLE for these first couple of walkthroughs. Once we get to the formatives, we do have a 5-day window that we have to have a quantitative score plugged in. But with the walkthroughs, there is no quantitative timetable to get that information plugged in. Our big goal as an administrative team is to give you timely, qualitative feedback on the glows and grows that we're seeing in the classroom. Throughout this process, please always remember our instructional coach, Miss Kitty Brown. She is an excellent resource to consult as a guide. Well, now let's get back to that post-observation self-assessment. This is an exercise intended to provide additional evidence to support your observation for the administrator. It's a chance for the teacher to really communicate to us, what did we not see before or after that walkthrough or formative observation began. Do look at those questions to consider as guides. What we want you to do is self-assess a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then provide a little bit of information about a rationale as to why you feel you scored at a 1, 2, 3, or 4. As teachers modeling lifelong learning, we all know the importance of introspection reflection. So take a couple of minutes after you go through that walkthrough and fill this information out. It's not something that we want you to do on a hour-by-hour basis. We don't want you to sit down for hours worth of time and communicate this info to us, but rather give us a rating, a self-assessment rating, and give us a little rationale about what we may or may not have seen through that walkthrough, and certainly what you hope that we did see in that walkthrough. This is another piece of information that just provides some ongoing evidence and support for us so that we can be as thorough and accurate as possible. Do know that these post-observation self-assessments are a lot more important at the beginning side of this, as we're still developing patterns of performance, scoring differences between that 2, which is good performance inconsistent, and a 3, which is good performance shown with consistency. These post-observation self-assessments really help us to determine that pattern of consistency. As you go through the TKES process, be sure to consider your TAPS standards reference sheet. This was information put in your box at the beginning of the year. If you would like a fresh copy, feel free to email Mrs. Brown and she'll get another one in your box. And as always, see your primary administrator for every question and answer that may come up and any ongoing support that we can give you. We appreciate your diligence and all your services that you provide to our students, and I hope that this information has been very helpful for you. If you got any questions, be sure to see one of us. Thank you so much, and go Panthers.